Between 1870 and 1900, over 1 million domestic servants worked in America's grandest homes, enduring 17-hour days, brutal labour, and complete loss of personal freedom. Their hands were permanently damaged from harsh chemicals, their bodies broken by endless work, yet they made the Gilded Age's opulence possible through invisible sacrifice. Here's what life was really like for America's forgotten servant class. Before we start, likes and subscribes help me keep making these. Where are you listening from? Drop your city and time in the comments. I'm always reading them thinking, wait, people in New Zealand listen to history stories to sleep. Okay, tonight it's the Gilded Age, but before we go anywhere, get cozy, like actually cozy. Pillows good? Blanket situation handled? Perfect. Trust me on this one. You stand at the edge of a world dripping with wealth and staggering inequality. It's 1885 and you're shivering, not just from the November chill biting through your thin wool coat, but from nerves. You're clutching a small battered suitcase containing everything you own in the world. 2 dresses, a nightgown, some undergarments, a hairbrush, and a faded photograph of your family back in Ireland. The mansion looms above you, 5 stories of imposing limestone and countless windows, each one like a judging eye. This is the Henderson family home, one of New York's finest addresses, and you, Mary Callahan, age 16, are about to become its newest and lowest ranking servant. Your stomach's not just empty, it's eating itself. You haven't had anything but a crust of bread since yesterday morning. The hunger makes your head light, your thoughts fuzzy around the edges, but there's no time for that now. You've come too far to turn back. You take a deep breath and approach the service entrance. Not the grand front doors with their gleaming brass fixtures, but a narrow, unassuming door tucked away on the side of the house. Your potential salvation and prison all in one. Wait, so this isn't the main entrance? You might be thinking. No, it absolutely is not, and you'd better get used to that right now. The service entrance might as well be in another dimension compared to the front door. You'll learn that immediately. Servants and family members exist in parallel universes that overlap physically but never, ever socially. You raise your hand to knock, but before you can, the door swings open. A woman stands there, her face stern as a winter morning, her black dress impeccably pressed, a ring of keys hanging at her waist. This is Mrs. Wallace, the housekeeper, though you don't know that yet. She looks you up and down, her gaze calculating, assessing, almost surgical in its precision. "Mary Callahan?" she asks, her voice crisp as autumn leaves. "Yes, ma'am," you respond, trying to keep the tremor from your voice. "You're late," she says, though you're not. You're exactly on time, but you'll quickly learn that in service, on time is already late. Come in then, and wipe your feet thoroughly. I won't have you tracking dirt into my house, not the Hendersons' house. Hers. That's your first lesson about Mrs. Wallace. In her mind, she doesn't work for the house works for her, and so will you. The smell hits you first as you step inside. Beeswax and lemon oil from endless polishing, the faint lingering scent of yesterday's roast, and something else, something distinctly human, the close quarters of many bodies living together, working together, sweating together. It's not unpleasant, just concentrated humanity. The narrow service corridor is dim compared to the bright autumn day outside, and it takes your eyes a moment to adjust. The walls are bare, practical. No fancy wallpaper here, no decorative mouldings, just plain painted walls and a simple wooden floor worn smooth by countless servant footsteps. "You'll be a scullery maid," Mrs. Wallace says, already walking briskly ahead, expecting you to follow. "Lowest position for females in the household. You'll report to Mrs. Collins, the cook. Your duties include washing dishes, scrubbing pots, cleaning the kitchen, peeling vegetables, hauling coal, and whatever else is required of you." She doesn't slow her pace as she continues. You'll be paid $3 per month with room and board provided. Half your wages will be held until the completion of your first year of service. If you leave before then, you forfeit that amount, $3 a month. To put that in perspective, the dress Mrs. Henderson will wear to dinner tonight cost $200, and people wonder why I'm still angry about wealth inequality. Your half-day off is Thursday afternoons from 2 o'clock until 9 in the evening. Provided all your work is complete, you are expected to attend church on Sundays. The family is Episcopalian. I assume you're Catholic? Yes, ma'am, you say. She sighs. There's a Catholic church 6 blocks away. You may attend early mass provided you're back in time to help with breakfast. You're led through a maze of back corridors and up a narrow staircase. The servants' stairs, built specifically so the family and their guests never have to witness the mechanics of their luxury. These stairs are steep and cramped, nothing like the grand central staircase you glimpsed through an open door. Up and up you climb, past the family's floors, past the main bedrooms, up to the very top of the house, the attic. Mrs. Wallace pushes open a door, revealing a small spare room with slanted ceilings following the roofline. There are 3 narrow beds crammed into the space, each with a small trunk at its foot. This is where you'll sleep, she says. You'll share with Annie and Catherine, the other scullery maids. That's your bed there. She points to the one directly under the small window. The mattress is thin, the blanket rough wool, but it's a bed and it's yours, and after weeks of uncertainty following your arrival in America, that means something. The house rises at 5. You'll be expected in the kitchen at 5:30 to help light the fires and begin breakfast preparations. Uniform is provided. She gestures to a folded stack on your bed. Black dress, white aprons, white caps. You're to keep it clean and pressed. Any questions? You have 1,000 questions, but you shake your head. Good. Change into your uniform and report to the kitchen. Mrs. Collins will be expecting you. And with that, she's gone, leaving you alone in a strange room, in a strange house, about to begin a strange new life. Let me tell you something. That uniform, it's not just clothes, it's the physical manifestation of your new identity. The moment you put it on, you stop being just Mary Callahan. You become the scullery maid. And trust me, it feels different. The fabric is rough cotton, scratchy against your skin. The dress is black, the universal servant colour that shows the least dirt, even though it shows every speck of dust. The apron is starched so stiffly it could probably stand up on its own. And the cap, that seemingly innocent little white cap, it's actually the ultimate symbol of servitude. It marks you, brands you. It's the difference between being a person and being a function. You change quickly, your fingers fumbling with unfamiliar buttons and ties. The uniform doesn't quite fit. It's a bit large, clearly made to be worn by different girls of different sizes as they cycle through the position. You'll learn to take it in yourself later. Servants have to be handy with a needle. Your normal clothes go into the small trunk at the foot of your bed. You catch a glimpse of yourself in a small spotted mirror hanging on the wall. You hardly recognise yourself. The girl from County Cork is gone, replaced by an anonymous figure in black and white. Now, while you're getting used to this bizarre new reality, let me paint you a picture of what you've just walked into. Because the America of 1885 isn't just different from your world. It's an entirely separate universe. This is the height of what we call the Gilded Age, named by Mark Twain to describe something that appears golden and glittering on the surface, but is actually made of cheaper material underneath. It's the perfect metaphor for this period of American history. The Civil War has been over for 20 years, and the country's industrial capacity has exploded. Railroads crisscross the nation, steel production is booming, oil has been discovered in Pennsylvania, and all of this industrialization is creating wealth on a scale never before seen. But here's the thing. This wealth isn't being distributed evenly, not even close. The richest 1% of Americans control about 25% of the total wealth, and the top 10%, they've got about 75% of everything. Sound familiar? Massive fortunes are being built by men whose names you'd still recognize today. Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, Morgan, these are the titans who are reshaping America for better and worse. Meanwhile, the average industrial worker makes about $500 a year, working 60 hours a week in often dangerous conditions. There's no social safety net, no worker protections, no minimum wage, no child labour laws, and servants like you, you're making a fraction of even that. You're $36 per year before the half they withhold is equivalent to about $1,000 in today's money, for what will amount to at least 80 hours of work per week. That's about 24 cents per hour in today's money. But here's the weird thing. Domestic service is actually considered one of the better jobs available to women in 1885. The alternatives are factory work, even lower pay, more dangerous conditions, agricultural labour, backbreaking, seasonal, or, well, the oldest profession. At least as a servant, you have food, shelter, and a degree of respectability. It's a devil's bargain, but it's one that millions of women like you are making. You take a deep breath and head downstairs to find the kitchen. The house is a labyrinth, but you follow the smell of baking bread and the sound of clattering pots. The kitchen, when you find it, is a hive of activity. It's hot, almost unbearably so, from the massive coal range that dominates one wall. The air is thick with steam and the mingled aromas of roasting meat, simmering stocks, and fresh herbs. At the centre of this controlled chaos stands Mrs. Collins, the cook. She's a formidable woman, not just in authority, but in physical presence. Her face is flushed from the heat, her arms solid muscle from years of wrestling heavy pots and pounding dough. "You the new girl then?" she asks when she spots you hovering uncertainly in the doorway. "Yes, ma'am, Mary Callahan." She looks you up and down, much as Mrs. Wallace did, but her assessment is different. She's not checking your deportment, she's gauging your strength, your potential usefulness. "Ever work in a kitchen before?" "Only at home, ma'am. For my mother." She snorts. "Well, this isn't your mother's kitchen, come here." She leads you to a deep stone sink where a mountain of dirty pots, pans, and dishes awaits. "This is yours," she says, gesturing to the sink. "You'll wash everything. The water pump is there. Hot water comes from the copper boiler next to the range. Soap is here, lye for the tough bits, scrub brush, rags, towels for drying." It looks simple enough, but as you'll soon discover, washing dishes for a household of this size is no small task. Each meal generates dozens of dishes, and in a house like this, there are many meals: breakfast, lunch, tea, dinner, and often late-night snacks for the family or their guests. "When you're done with these, come find me," Mrs. Collins says. "There are vegetables to be peeled for tonight's dinner." And so begins your first day as a scullery maid in one of New York's grand homes. Your hands plunge into hot, soapy water, the first of countless thousands of times they'll make this journey. The water is scalding, your skin turns pink almost immediately. But you don't complain, you can't complain, this is your job now. The pots are heavy, awkward to manoeuvre in the sink, cast iron skillets encrusted with burned-on food, copper pans that need special care to maintain their shine, silver-plated serving dishes that must be handled carefully to avoid dents or scratches. Your back begins to ache from leaning over the sink. Your fingers prune and then start to crack from the harsh lye soap. Wait, did I just say lye soap? Yes, actual lye, as in sodium hydroxide, as in the stuff that can literally dissolve a body. You're plunging your bare hands into it multiple times a day, and there are no rubber gloves in 1885, by the way, just your skin versus industrial strength caustic chemicals. Fun times. You're too slow. comes a voice beside you. You turn to see another girl in the same uniform as yours, perhaps a year or two older. "I'm Catherine. You must be the new girl." "Mary," you say, wincing as the soap finds a small cut on your finger. "You need to be faster," Catherine says, not unkindly. "Mrs. Collins won't like it if you're still washing breakfast dishes when it's time to start lunch. Here, let me show you." She demonstrates a more efficient method, stacking similar items, tackling the greasiest pots first while the water is hottest and cleanest, using the right amount of soap and lye. "Your hands will toughen up," she says, noticing your discomfort. "Mine used to bleed every day when I first started. Now look." She holds up her hands and you're shocked at the transformation. They're red, chapped, the skin thickened and calloused, the nails short and broken. These are not a young woman's hands anymore. They're work tools, adapted to their function. You're looking at your future and it's written in cracked skin and broken nails. "How long have you been here?" you ask. 2 years, Catherine says. "Started when I was 14. And do you like it?" The question feels naive, even as you ask it. Catherine gives you a look that's equal parts pity and amusement. "Like doesn't enter into it," she says. "It's a job, better than the factory. My sister works at the textile mill downtown, lost 2 fingers last year when her hand got caught in a loom. That puts things in perspective." "The food's good here," Catherine continues. "Mrs. Collins is fair, even if she shouts sometimes. Mrs. Wallace is strict but not cruel. And the Hendersons?" She shrugs. "They're rich people. They barely notice we exist, which is better than the ones who notice for the wrong reasons, if you take my meaning." You do, unfortunately. You've heard stories from other girls who came to America before you, stories about masters who took liberties with the female staff. It's a relief to hear that's not a concern in this household, at least. Anyway, finish these quick, Catherine says. The delivery cart will be here soon with the meat for tonight, and we'll need to help bring it in. As if on cue, a bell on the wall jingles, one of many in a row, each labelled with a different room of the house. That's the front door, Catherine says. Annie will get it. Another girl, presumably Annie, hurries past, straightening her apron as she goes. She's small, maybe 17, with a pinched face and quick, nervous movements. The kitchen, you're learning, is the beating heart of the house. Everything revolves around it. The meals, yes, but also the rhythms of the day, the comings and goings, the gossip and news. Mrs. Collins might be lower in the servant hierarchy than Mrs. Wallace or Mr. Peterson, the butler whom you haven't met yet. But in this domain, she's sovereign. And you, the scullery maid, are at the absolute bottom of this miniature society. Everyone outranks you. Everyone can give you orders. Your time is not your own. Your body is not your own. Your labour belongs to the Hendersons, purchased for $3 a month, and the privilege of sleeping in their attic. This life, this constrained, demanding, physically punishing life, is what millions of women endured during the Gilded Age. Their stories are largely unwritten, their experiences unrecorded. They were the invisible engine that powered the lavish lifestyles of America's new aristocracy. You'll be up before dawn tomorrow, working until well after dark. You'll wash mountains of dishes, scrub floors on your hands and knees, haul coal and water, empty chamber pots, peel endless vegetables, and do it all without complaint, without rest, without recognition. And somewhere above you, the Hendersons will glide through their beautiful rooms, attend their elegant parties, and never once think about the army of people below stairs who make it all possible. Behind every fortune, every mansion, every silk gown and diamond necklace, there were dozens of women like you, hands raw, backs aching, youth fading, whose labour created the illusion of effortless luxury. As you finish the last pot and reach for a towel to dry your red-throbbing hands, Catherine glances at the clock. "Almost time to start preparing for lunch," she says. "Better hurry with those vegetables Mrs. Collins mentioned." And so your day continues, one task flowing into the next without pause, without rest. The vegetables need peeling: potatoes, carrots, turnips, onions, pounds and pounds of them, enough to feed the family and their frequent guests, plus the staff of 15 who keep the household running. Your fingers, already tender from the hot water and harsh soap, now face a new challenge. The knife slips on a wet potato, nicking your thumb. You wince but keep working. Blood mixes with vegetable peels. In a house like this, the work doesn't stop for minor injuries. By the time lunch preparations are in full swing, you've been on your feet for hours. Every muscle aches, your lower back throbs from leaning over the sink, your shoulders burn from the repetitive motion of scrubbing, your stomach growls. You still haven't eaten today. Staff lunch is after the family's, Catherine informs you when she notices you eyeing a freshly baked loaf of bread. "We eat what's left." What's left turns out to be substantial. The Hendersons, like most wealthy families, order far more food than they actually consume. Staff meals are simple but filling. Today it's soup made from yesterday's roast, bread, cheese and apples. You eat quickly, standing up in the kitchen rather than sitting in the servants' hall. There's no time for a proper break. The dishes from the family's lunch are already arriving, and they'll need washing before dinner preparations begin in earnest. As you settle into your work rhythm, you start to notice the other members of the household staff. There's Mr. Peterson, the butler, a tall, imposing figure who manages the male staff and oversees the wine cellar and dining room. He barely glances at you. Scullery maids are so far beneath his notice that you might as well be furniture. There's Mrs. Wallace, of course, who seems to materialise whenever something isn't being done to her exacting standards. Her keys jingle as she moves through the house, a constant reminder of her authority. There are the footmen, William and Thomas, tall, handsome young men, selected as much for their appearance as their skills. They serve at table, answer doors, carry heavy items, and generally act as the visible face of service in the household. There's Agnes, the head housemaid, who supervises the cleaning of the family's rooms, and Lily, the parlour-maid, responsible for the drawing room and public spaces, and Margaret, the lady's maid, who attends directly to Mrs. Henderson, helping her dress and styling her hair. Each person has their specific role, their territory, their place in the rigid hierarchy, and everyone has more status than you. The afternoon passes in a blur of tasks. The kitchen grows hotter as dinner preparations begin in earnest. Mrs. Collins orchestrates a complex dance of roasting, boiling, baking and sauce making. You're called upon to fetch ingredients, stir pots, mind the fire in the range, all while continuing to wash the endless stream of dishes, pots and utensils that cooking generates. The bell wall springs to life as the family moves through their day, each chime summoning a different servant to a different room. The front door bell for visitors, the drawing room bell for tea, the master's study bell for correspondence. The bells never stop, and neither does the work. By 6 o'clock your feet are swollen in your ill-fitting shoes, your back spasms periodically from being hunched over for so long, your hands are raw, red patches where the skin has started to crack and peel from constant exposure to hot water and lye. But dinner service is beginning, and this is the most important meal of the day in a house like this. The Hendersons are entertaining guests, another wealthy family and a business associate of Mr. Henderson's. The dining room has been prepared, the silver polish, the crystal gleaming, the damask tablecloth perfectly pressed. You catch a glimpse of the room as you help carry some of the prepared dishes to the butler's pantry, where Mr. Peterson will oversee their final presentation. The sight nearly stops you in your tracks. The dining room is a cathedral to wealth. A massive table dominates the space, set with fine china, sterling silver, and crystal that catches the light from the chandelier above. Fresh flowers in silver vases run down the centre of the table. The chairs, upholstered in rich burgundy silk, await the family and their guests. It's another world, a world you serve but will never be part of. Dinner in a house like this isn't just a meal, it's a performance. Course after course emerges from the kitchen: oysters, soup, fish, roast, game, salad, cheese, dessert, fruit, each requiring its own dishes, its own serving pieces, its own choreography of service. And every single item used, every fork, knife, spoon, plate, glass, serving dish will eventually make its way to your sink. As the family dines in splendour, the kitchen reaches a fever pitch of activity. Mrs. Collins shouts orders, sauces are finished, garnishes applied, plates wiped clean of any errant drops or smudges. The footmen come and go, carrying full platters up and empty ones back down. You're already washing the dishes from the early courses, trying to stay ahead of the flood that will come when dinner concludes. Your arms are submerged to the elbows in hot, soapy water. Your fingers have gone pruny, then raw, then numb. Through the open kitchen door you can hear faint laughter from above. The family and their guests enjoying their meal, their wine, their conversation. Do they ever think about the hands that prepared their food, the hands currently washing their dishes, the lives being spent in their service? No, they don't. Because that's not how the world works. Not in 1885, and honestly, not that much has changed today. By the time the last dessert plate comes down, it's nearly 10 o'clock. You've been working for over 14 hours. Your body has moved past pain to a sort of dull, persistent ache that seems to radiate from your very core. Almost done, Catherine says, as she helps you with the final round of washing up. Just need to clean and bank the range for the night, scrub the kitchen floor, and set out the early morning provisions for breakfast. It's another hour before you're finally able to climb the narrow servants' stairs to the attic room. Catherine and Annie trudge beside you, equally exhausted. None of you has the energy for conversation. The room is cold. Heat rises, but not all the way to the attic, especially not in a house the size of the Hendersons. You can see your breath in the chilly air. The single window provides minimal ventilation, and the space holds the mingled scents of 3 working women: sweat, laundry soap, hair oil, and the kitchen smells that cling to your clothes and skin. You change quickly in the cold, stripping off your uniform and pulling on your nightgown. There's no privacy, but you're all too tired to care. The day has scoured away any sense of modesty or self-consciousness. As you sink onto your thin mattress, pulling the rough wool blanket up to your chin, you realise this is it. This is your life now. Tomorrow will be the same, and the day after, and the day after that. Your eyes close almost immediately, your body surrendering to exhaustion, but sleep comes with the knowledge that the bell will ring at 5 and it all begins again. This was the reality for countless women during America's Gilded Age. Invisible workers who made possible the visible splendor, human machinery maintaining the illusion of effortless luxury. Their stories deserve to be told. The bell seems to ring about 30 seconds after you've closed your eyes, though in reality it's been 5 hours, 5 precious hours of sleep that vanish like smoke as Catherine shakes your shoulder. Up, she says simply, can't be late. Your body protests with every movement. Muscles you didn't know you had are screaming from yesterday's labour. Your hands throb, the cuts and cracks have stiffened overnight, and fresh pain blooms as you flex your fingers. But there's no time to coddle yourself, no time to ease into the day. The attic room is dark and freezing cold. November in New York and there's no heat up here. Of course there isn't. Heat costs money and no one wastes money on servant comfort. Your breath makes little clouds in the air as you hurry to dress. Wash quick, Annie advises, nodding to a ceramic basin on the small washstand. The water in it is ice cold and barely enough to splash your face and hands. There's a communal towel, already damp from the other girls. No privacy, no comfort, no concessions to dignity. "Bathroom's down the hall," Catherine says, noting your confusion. "But there's no time in the morning. You can use it tonight before bed." Maybe. Maybe, because even basic bodily functions are subject to the demands of the household schedule. The three of you dress quickly in the dark, fumbling with buttons and ties. There's a rhythm to it, a practiced efficiency that you lack but will soon develop. No one speaks much. Morning comes too early for conversation. You follow the others down the narrow servant stairs, your hand trailing along the wall for guidance in the dim light. The house is quiet at this hour. The family won't rise for several more hours, but the service areas are already coming to life. The kitchen, when you reach it, is cold and dark. The great range that dominated the space yesterday is now a slumbering beast that needs awakening. This, you quickly learn, is your first task of the day. "Coal," Catherine says, pointing to a scuttle. "Fill it from the bin in the back, then lay the fire. Mrs. Collins will be down soon and she'll want the range hot." The coal bin is in a small courtyard behind the kitchen. You step outside into the pre-dawn darkness, the cold hitting you like a physical blow. The city is quiet at this hour. No carriages on the streets yet, no vendors calling their wares, just the distant sound of factory whistles calling the earliest shift workers. The coal is heavy, the scuttle awkward to manage. You fill it as full as you can lift, then stagger back inside. Your arms strain with the weight. Coal dust smudges your clean uniform, works its way under your fingernails, into the cracks in your skin. It burns. Laying the fire in the range is an art you don't yet possess. The kindling goes on top of crumpled newspaper, the coal arranged to allow for airflow. Your first attempt fails. The paper burns, but the coal doesn't catch. "Not enough kindling," comes a voice from the doorway. Mrs. Collins has arrived, her face a mask of early morning irritation. Start again, and be quick about it. You rebuild the fire, adding more kindling this time, arranging the coal more carefully. Your hands shake slightly, not just from the cold, but from the awareness that you're being watched, judged. When the fire finally catches, the relief is palpable. "Now, the copper," Mrs. Collins says, nodding to a large boiler attached to the side of the range. "We'll need hot water for breakfast preparations." You fill the copper from the pump, another heavy, awkward task, then turn your attention to the rest of the kitchen. There are lamps to be lit, surfaces to be wiped down, yesterday's ashes to be removed from the range. By the time the first pale light of dawn filters through the kitchen windows, you've been working for an hour and breakfast preparations are in full swing. The kitchen has transformed from a cold, dark cave to a hive of bustling activity. Mrs. Collins kneads bread dough with practiced movements, her strong arms working the mass into submission. Catherine chops ham for the family's breakfast, the knife moving at a speed that makes you nervous. Annie sets up the coffee service, measuring beans into the grinder. And you're peeling potatoes for hash, your fingers clumsy with cold and fatigue. The knife slips again, nicking your already damaged hand. You wince but keep working. Blood mingles with potato starch. Yesterday's lesson already learned. The work doesn't stop for minor injuries. "Faster," Mrs. Collins says, glancing at your slow progress. The family breaks their fast at 8, and we've still got eggs, muffins and porridge to prepare. You pick up the pace, ignoring the stinging in your hands. The potatoes need to be diced next, then into a cast-iron skillet with onions and the ham Catherine is chopping. The smell makes your empty stomach growl audibly. "Staff breakfast after the families," Mrs. Collins reminds you, though not unkindly. "There's tea there if you want it." She nods to a pot on the corner of the range. The tea is strong, bitter, and scalding hot. It burns your tongue but sends a wave of blessed warmth through your tired body. You drink it gratefully, not even minding the absence of milk or sugar. The kitchen settles into a choreographed dance of breakfast preparation. Each person has their role, their tasks, their space. You're still learning the steps, still bumping into others, still getting in the way, but there's a certain beauty to it, a functional harmony that emerges from necessity and repetition. At precisely 7:30, the first bell of the day rings. Mr. Henderson's dressing room. The day officially begins. "That'll be Mr. Peterson," Mrs. Collins says, nodding to the bell. He takes the master his morning tea. As if summoned by his name, the butler appears in the kitchen doorway. Mr. Peterson is tall, his posture perfect, his expression perpetually solemn. His black suit is immaculate, his white shirt starched within an inch of its life. He's the very picture of dignity in service. "Good morning, Mrs. Collins," he says, his voice as crisp as his appearance. "The master's morning tea, if you please." "Ready and waiting, Mr. Peterson," Mrs. Collins replies, gesturing to a silver tray already prepared with a pot of tea, a cup and saucer, and a small plate of thin toast. Mr. Peterson inspects the tray with a critical eye, adjusts the position of the cup slightly, then lifts it with the effortless grace of long practice. He doesn't acknowledge you or the other junior staff. In the servant hierarchy, he might as well be royalty compared to a scullery maid. After he leaves, the pace in the kitchen accelerates. More bells begin to ring as the family wakes. Maids hurry up and down the stairs, carrying hot water for washing, removing chamber pots. Yes, that's your job too, emptying the family's night soil, preparing rooms for the day. The breakfast dishes emerge from the pantry. Fine bone china, delicate cups, silver serving pieces. Everything must be perfect. Everything must be hot. Everything must be ready exactly on time. At 8 o'clock, the family sits down to breakfast in the morning room, a light-filled space designed specifically for this meal. You get a glimpse of it as you help carry dishes up from the kitchen. Pale yellow walls, white mouldings, a table set with fresh flowers and gleaming silver. You also get your first look at the Hendersons themselves. Mr. James Henderson is in his 50s, a solidly built man with mutton chop whiskers and the confident bearing of someone who has never questioned his place in the world. He made his fortune in railways and banking, expanding the modest business he inherited from his father into a small empire. Mrs. Eleanor Henderson is perhaps 10 years younger than her husband, still beautiful in a carefully maintained way. Her morning dress is simpler than her evening attire, but still costs more than you'll make in a year. Her hair is already perfectly arranged, courtesy of Margaret, her lady's maid. Their children are present as well. Miss Louise, 19 and preparing for her second season in society, and Master William, 17 and home from boarding school for a short visit. They speak little during breakfast, confining their conversation to plans for the day ahead. Mr. Henderson will be at his office downtown. Mrs. Henderson has calls to make and a committee meeting for some charity function. Miss Louise has a fitting for a new gown. Master William is meeting friends for lunch at their club. Not once do they acknowledge the servants who move silently around them, refilling coffee cups, removing empty plates, anticipating needs before they're expressed. You and the other staff are furniture to them, functional objects that enable their comfortable lives. "Toast!" Mrs. Henderson says simply, not looking up from the letter she's reading, and instantly William the footman presents the toast rack for her selection. "The eggs are tepid," Miss Louise complains, poking at her plate with a silver fork. "I'll have fresh ones prepared immediately, miss," William responds, whisking the offending plate away, and just like that, your carefully prepared breakfast service is thrown into chaos. Mrs. Collins must drop everything to make fresh eggs. You must wash the rejected plate and cutlery immediately so they can be reused. The entire kitchen scrambles to correct this small imperfection in Miss Louise's morning. Rich people, Catherine mutters under her breath as she helps you quickly wash and dry the returned plate. God forbid her eggs are less than scalding. It's your first real glimpse of the fundamental truth of service. The comfort, preferences and whims of the family always come first. Your time, your labour, your fatigue are irrelevant. You exist to smooth their path through life, to create the illusion that hot food appears by magic. Clean clothes materialise in wardrobes, dust never settles on surfaces, and chamber pots empty themselves. By 9:30 the family has finished breakfast and dispersed to their various activities. Only then can the staff eat. The kitchen table is quickly set with the breakfast leftovers: eggs, bacon, toast, porridge. The food is no longer hot, but it's plentiful. You sit with Catherine, Annie and the other lower servants. The upper servants, Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Wallace, Mrs. Collins and the lady's maid, eat separately in Mrs. Wallace's sitting room, maintaining the hierarchy even during meals. Eat quick, Catherine advises between bites. We've got to clear all this, wash everything and start on lunch preparations. You're starving after hours of work on just a cup of tea and the food disappears rapidly. It's your first proper meal since arriving, and despite the simplicity, it tastes wonderful. You hadn't realised how hollow with hunger you felt until now, but Catherine is right. There's no time to linger. The breakfast dishes are waiting and the cycle begins again. Wash, dry, put away, clear, clean, prepare. The rhythm of the household continues its relentless forward motion. As you settle into the familiar position at the sink, arms deep in hot, soapy water, Catherine works beside you, showing you more efficient methods, helping you keep pace with the never-ending flow of dishes, pots and pans. Mrs. Wallace will be doing room inspections this morning, she tells you as you work. Be glad you're down here. She's a terror when she's inspecting. Poor Agnes was in tears yesterday over a bit of dust under Mr. Henderson's bed. Does she inspect our room too? You ask, thinking of the small attic space you share. Catherine snorts. Not likely. She doesn't care how we live as long as we keep the family's rooms perfect. Our quarters could be a pigsty for all she notices. There's a strange freedom in that neglect, you realise. The attic room may be small, cold and plain, but at least it's a space where the exacting standards of the household don't apply. A tiny pocket of autonomy in a life otherwise completely controlled by others. As the morning progresses, you fall into a rhythm with Catherine and Annie. There's a camaraderie that develops naturally among those who share hard work and low status. You learn more about them as you wash, chop, scrub and carry together. Catherine is from County Mayo originally, came to America 3 years ago when the potato crops failed again and her family couldn't feed all 8 children. She sends half her wages home to help her parents and younger siblings. She can read a little, enough to sound out street signs and simple notices, but not write. Annie is American-born, the daughter of German immigrants. Her father was killed in a factory accident 2 years ago. Her mother works as a washerwoman. Annie's wages help support her 3 younger siblings. She's desperately afraid of losing her position, jumps at every bell, flinches when Mrs. Wallace or Mrs. Collins raises their voice. "What about you?" Catherine asks as you scrub a particularly stubborn pot. "What brought you here?" The question is simple, but opens a flood of memories. Home, the small farm in County Cork where you grew up, the ever-present worry about rent, the hunger that became your constant companion after your father died and your mother struggled to keep the land. The letter from your aunt in America promising work and opportunity, the collection taken up by the village to pay for your passage. The terrifying journey across the Atlantic in steerage class, packed in with hundreds of other desperate souls seeking a better life. The bewildering chaos of Castle Garden Immigration Depot. The relief of finding the Hendersons' address and securing a position. Same as everyone, you say simply, looking for something better. Catherine nods. She understands without needing the details. Your story is her story, is Annie's story, is the story of millions who came to America hoping to escape poverty and find opportunity. Mrs. Wallace says you're to help with the laundry this afternoon. Annie tells you as lunch preparations begin. The washerwomen come on Mondays, but there's always extra to be done. Laundry. Another back-breaking task in a house of this size. Sheets, tablecloths, napkins, clothing, mountains of fabric that need sorting, soaking, scrubbing, rinsing, wringing, hanging, ironing, all done by hand with lye soap, boiling water and raw muscle power. Better than chamber pots, Catherine says with a grim smile. That's tomorrow's joy for you. Before you can contemplate that particular pleasure, Mrs. Collins calls you over to help with lunch. The Hendersons take a lighter midday meal, cold meats, salad, soup, bread, but it still requires careful preparation and presentation. You're tasked with washing lettuce leaves one by one, inspecting each for dirt or insects, then patting them dry with a clean cloth. It's tedious, time-consuming work, but a break from the constant dishwashing. Your hands are grateful for the respite, though the cold water stings the cuts and cracks. Not like that, Mrs. Collins corrects when she sees your technique. Gently. If you bruise the leaves, they'll brown faster. The family doesn't eat brown lettuce. Heaven forbid the Hendersons should encounter a less than perfect salad leaf. You adjust your approach, handling each piece of greenery as if it were made of delicate glass. As you work, you hear the comings and goings of the household above. The front door opening and closing as Mr. Henderson leaves for his office. The rustle of silk as Mrs. Henderson descends the stairs for her morning calls. The quick, light footsteps of Miss Louise as she moves from room to room, restless and bored. These sounds, these movements dictate the rhythm of your day. Every activity below stairs is tied to the activities above. Their lives shape yours in the most immediate, practical way. Just before noon, the bell for Mrs. Henderson's room rings. Margaret hurries to answer it, returning moments later with instructions for lunch. Mrs. Henderson will take lunch in her sitting room, she informs Mrs. Collins. She has a headache and doesn't wish to come down. She'd like a tray with just soup and perhaps a little toast. Mrs. Collins nods, already adjusting the preparations. Mary, she calls to you. Wash that small silver tray, the one with the rose pattern, and find the invalid set, the white china with the blue flowers. The invalid set, special dishes for when a family member is ill or indisposed. Not the everyday china, not the best china reserved for company, but a specific set designed for serving meals in bedrooms or private sitting rooms. It strikes you suddenly, the absurd luxury of having multiple sets of dishes for different purposes, different occasions, different moods. Your family at home ate from the same 4 chipped plates for every meal, year after year. As you retrieve the special dishes from their cabinet and carefully wash the decorative tray, you notice a nick in one of the plates. Tiny, barely visible, but there. You hesitate, uncertain whether to mention it. "What is it?" Mrs. Collins asks, noticing your pause. "There's a small chip in this plate, ma'am," you say, showing her the floor. She peers at it, frowning. Mrs. Henderson would notice that in an instant, headache or no. Use the one with the green band instead. She shakes her head. And tell Mrs. Wallace that set needs replacing. The mistress won't abide damaged china, but has no qualms about damaged hands preparing her food, serving her meals, cleaning her house. The irony isn't lost on you. The morning bleeds into afternoon. Lunch is prepared, served, and cleared away. The family disperses again. Mrs. Henderson to rest in her room, Miss Louise to her fitting appointment, Master William to his club. The house settles into a brief relative quiet. Staff lunch is quick. Sandwiches made from leftover meats, bread slightly stale but still good, tea to wash it down, eaten standing up in the kitchen rather than sitting in the servants' hall. There's too much to do to waste time on proper meals. After lunch comes your introduction to laundry duty. Mrs. Wallace appears in the kitchen, keys jingling at her waist, and beckons you to follow her. She leads you to a small room off the kitchen where two large copper tubs sit atop stove grates. Monday is wash day for the big items, she explains. The washerwomen handle the sheets, towels and tablecloths, but there's always delicate items that can't wait or can't be trusted to outside hands. The tubs are already filled with hot water, steam rising in lazy curls. A cake of harsh lye soap sits on a small table, along with a washboard, a stick for stirring, and a pile of white fabric. The mistress's underthings, Mrs. Wallace says, nodding to the pile, and Miss Louise's. They need washing before tomorrow. Soap, scrub, rinse twice, then through the wringer. Hang them in the drying room when you're done. With that, she's gone, leaving you alone with the intimidating task. The undergarments are fine cotton and silk, delicate lace and ribbon, so different from your own plain, serviceable underwear. Each piece probably costs more than you'll make in a month. You approach the task cautiously, afraid of damaging the expensive garments. The soap is harsh, but you can't use too much or it will yellow the white fabric. The washboard's ridges are rough on your already damaged hands, but each piece needs thorough scrubbing to remove perspiration stains. The steam rises around you, turning the small room into a sauna. Sweat trickles down your back, plasters your hair to your forehead. Your uniform sticks to your skin, heavy and uncomfortable. But there's no relief, no break. The washing must be completed before you can return to your regular kitchen duties. By the time you finish, soap, scrub, rinse, wring, repeat. Your arms ache from the effort, your hands burn from the hot water and lye, and your back throbs from leaning over the tubs. The drying room, when you finally carry the wet laundry there, is at least warm. A rare comfort in your day. You hang each piece carefully on the drying racks, making sure nothing touches. Nothing wrinkles. They'll need ironing tomorrow, but that's someone else's task, thankfully. As you return to the kitchen, you catch a glimpse of the clock. Nearly 4. You've been working for 11 hours already, with at least 6 more to go before you can sleep. The realization settles like a weight on your shoulders. This is your life now. Day after endless day of physical labor, of meeting others' needs, of existing solely to maintain the comfort and convenience of the Hendersons. You wonder briefly what they're doing at this moment. Is Mrs. Henderson still resting with her headache? Is Miss Louise admiring her new gown in the Modeste's mirror? Is Master William enjoying drinks with his friends at their club? Whatever they're doing, you can be certain they're not thinking about you or any of the other servants who make their lives possible. The afternoon wears on, the kitchen gearing up for the most important meal of the day. Dinner. Mrs. Collins is in her element, orchestrating the complex dance of preparation. Meat must be roasted, vegetables prepared, sauces made, desserts assembled. You're back at your station by the sink, washing the utensils and bowls used in the preparations, staying ahead of the demand for clean equipment. Your body operates on automatic now, too tired to register new pain, simply accepting the continued demands placed upon it. Mr. and Mrs. Raymond are joining the family for dinner, Catherine informs you as she chops carrots nearby. That means the second best china and the silver fish forks. More dishes, more specialised cutlery, more work. You nod, too tired for more of a response. The Raymonds are always critical of the food, she continues. Mrs. Collins is in a state about it. Expect a long evening. A long evening. As if the day hasn't been long enough already. You suppress a sigh and keep washing, your hands moving mechanically through the familiar motions. As the sun sets outside, casting long shadows through the kitchen windows, the pace accelerates. The family will change for dinner soon. The dining room must be ready. The first courses must be prepared for serving. The bell wall springs to life. Mr. Henderson's dressing room, Mrs. Henderson's bedroom, Miss Louise's room, Master William's room. The upper servants rush to assist with evening dress, jewellery, hair. And below, in the kitchen, the real work continues. The invisible labour that makes the visible splendour possible. The hands in hot water, the backs bent over stoves, the feet aching on hard floors. This is the reality of service in the Gilded Age. An army of people like you, their youth and health sacrificed to maintain the illusion of effortless luxury for families like the Hendersons, their comfort built on your discomfort, their leisure purchased with your labour. As dinner preparations reach their climax, Mrs. Collins suddenly turns to you. Mary, fetch more butter from the cold box, quickly now. You hurry to obey, your tired feet carrying you to the small room off the kitchen where perishables are kept cool with blocks of ice. The cold box is a large wooden cabinet with ice compartments and shelves for food storage. You're reaching for the butter when you hear a crash behind you, followed by Mrs. Collins's cry of dismay. Rushing back, you find a disaster. A large copper pot of sauce has slipped, spilling its contents across the kitchen floor and splashing several nearby surfaces. "Don't just stand there," Mrs. Collins shouts, her face flushed with panic. "Get the mop quickly." The kitchen erupts into frantic activity. Catherine grabs cloths to contain the spill. Annie rushes to prepare a replacement sauce. Mrs. Collins stirs another pot to prevent it from burning while issuing a stream of instructions. And you're on your hands and knees, sopping up expensive sauce with rags, then scrubbing the floor to remove every trace. The family must never know there was a mishap. The dinner service must proceed flawlessly despite the chaos below stairs. It's a perfect metaphor for service itself, crisis and recovery happening out of sight, ensuring that the surface visible to the family remains pristine and undisturbed. As you scrub frantically at a splash of sauce that's reached the base of the range, you catch Catherine's eye. She gives you a quick, tired smile of solidarity. This shared moment of crisis has made you one of them, fully inducted into the hidden world of service. The first dinner bell rings, signalling that the family and their guests are seated in the dining room. Despite the kitchen disaster, despite the frantic recovery, the meal will begin on time, the courses will arrive hot and perfectly presented, and the Hendersons will never know how close their dinner came to ruin. This is the true skill of service, not just the physical labour, but the creation and maintenance of an illusion. The illusion that wealth and comfort happen effortlessly, that fine meals appear by magic, that houses clean themselves, that clothes wash and mend themselves, and it's all made possible by people like you, people whose stories rarely get told. Dinner service is a marathon, not a sprint. As the family and their guests settle into the dining room, you and the other servants below stairs launch into a carefully choreographed dance that will last for the next 3 hours. Each course, and there are 8 of them tonight, requires its own dishes, its own serving pieces, its own garnishes and accompaniments, and each item, once used, makes its way back down to the kitchen, to your waiting hands at the sink. "Keep up," Catherine urges as the first wave of dishes returns. Soup bowls and spoons, still half full in some cases because God forbid a wealthy person finish what's on their plate. They'll be sending down the fish course soon. Your hands, already raw and cracked, plunge back into the hot, soapy water. The pain is immediate, sharp, but there's no time to nurse your wounds. The dishes must be washed, dried, and put away immediately. The sink must be clear for the next course's aftermath. Above you, in the dining room, the conversation flows as smoothly as the wine. Mr. Henderson discusses business prospects with Mr. Raymond. Mrs. Henderson and Mrs. Raymond exchange society gossip. Miss Louise flirts delicately with the Raymond's son, a Yale student home for the weekend. Footmen move silently around the table, serving, clearing, anticipating needs. And below, you wash and wash and wash. By the time the dessert plates come down, your back is screaming from being hunched over the sink for so long. Your feet throb in your ill-fitting shoes. Your hands have gone from painful to numb, which is almost a blessing. Almost done, Catherine says, helping you with the final wave of crystal and silver. Just the coffee service left, and that's not so bad. Not so bad is relative at this point. Even the delicate coffee cups with their thin handles and gold rims feel impossibly heavy in your tired hands. It's after 10 when the last of the dinner dishes are finally washed, dried and put away, but your day isn't over, not even close. Now we clean the kitchen, Mrs. Collins announces, surveying the battlefield that her domain has become. Everything spotless for breakfast preparations. Cleaning the kitchen after a full day of cooking is its own special hell. Every surface is splattered with grease or sauce, flour dusts the work tables, vegetable peelings cling to the floor despite your best efforts to keep up during the day. You're assigned to the range, the massive, still hot iron beast that dominates the kitchen. It needs to be cleaned of food spills, ashes removed from the firebox, the surface blackened with special polish to prevent rust. It's filthy, physical work, and the range is still hot enough to burn your skin if you're not careful. Catherine takes the floors on her hands and knees with a brush and bucket, scrubbing every inch. Annie tackles the work tables and counters, scouring them with salt and lemon to remove stains. Mrs. Collins oversees it all, her critical eye missing nothing. "You've missed a spot there, Mary," she calls, pointing to a splash of grease on the range door. "And Catherine, the corner by the pantry needs another going over." It's nearly midnight before the kitchen finally meets her standards. By then, you're swaying on your feet, fatigue having moved beyond simple tiredness to a bone-deep exhaustion that makes even standing an effort. "Bath night for the kitchen staff," Mrs. Collins says, as you put away the last of the cleaning supplies. "You three can go first. Don't take too long. The others are waiting their turn." Bath night. The words penetrate your exhausted brain slowly. Bath. You haven't been properly cleaned since you left your aunt's tiny apartment 3 days ago. "Once a week," Catherine explains as she leads you and Annie to a small room off the kitchen courtyard. Household staff bathe on Tuesdays, kitchen staff on Mondays, men on Wednesdays. The bath is a large copper tub set before a small stove that heats water in a copper boiler. The room is warm, steamy, and smells of lye soap and damp. "We share the water," Annie says, already unbuttoning her uniform. "First come, cleanest bath." Wait, what? That's right, you take turns in the same bath water, a practice that's as economical as it is unsanitary. Hot water requires fuel to heat, and fuel costs money. No household, no matter how wealthy, wastes money on multiple bathtubs of hot water for servants. Since you're new, you're offered the chance to go first. A small kindness from Catherine and Annie that you accept gratefully. You strip off your grimy uniform, suddenly self-conscious despite your fatigue. The other girls politely turn away, giving you what privacy they can in the small space. The water is gloriously hot, a blessed relief for your aching muscles. You sink into it with a sigh that's almost indecent in its pleasure. For a few precious minutes you allow yourself to simply feel the heat seeping into your tired body, soothing the worst of the day's aches. But you can't linger. Others are waiting, and tomorrow comes early. You scrub quickly with the harsh lye soap, the same soap used for laundry and dishes, because why would servants need anything gentler, washing away the coal dust, food stains, and sweat of your first full day? Your hair gets the same treatment, a quick wash with lye soap that gets it clean but leaves it feeling like straw. There are no luxuries here, no scented oils, no soft towels, no lotions for your damaged hands, just basic cleanliness, achieved as efficiently as possible. All too soon, you're out of the tub, drying off with a rough towel while Catherine takes her turn. The water is already cloudy with the day's grime, but she doesn't complain. This is the system, and you all work within it. Clean, exhausted, but feeling marginally more human, you make your way up the servants' stairs to the attic room. The house is quiet now, the family and their guests having retired for the night. The gas lamps have been turned down, leaving the corridors in shadow. In the attic, you change into your nightgown by the dim light of a single candle. The air is freezing, November in New York, and heat still doesn't rise this far. You can see your breath as you quickly shed your underclothes and pull the nightgown over your head. First days the worst, Catherine says as she returns from her bath, her hair damp and already beginning to freeze in the cold air. It gets, well, not easier, but you get used to it. You nod, too tired for words, and sink onto your thin mattress. The sheets are clean but rough, the blanket inadequate against the cold. You curl into a ball for warmth, pulling the blanket up to your chin. Sleep comes almost instantly, a deep, dreamless unconsciousness born of absolute exhaustion. Your body surrenders to it gratefully, knowing it will be all too short. The bell seems to ring minutes after you've closed your eyes, though again it's been 5 hours. Another day begins. And so it goes. Day after day, your life settles into a rhythm defined by bells, by meals, by the family's schedule. Each day brings the same tasks: lighting fires, washing dishes, scrubbing floors, polishing silver, hauling coal and water, emptying chamber pots, preparing food. The work never ends. It merely changes form. Your body adapts, as bodies do when pushed to their limits repeatedly. The constant pain in your hands dulls to a persistent ache. Your back grows stronger, better able to support hours of leaning over sinks and stoves. Your feet toughen in your ill-fitting shoes. You learn the rhythms of the household, the personalities of its inhabitants, both upstairs and down. Mr. Henderson is stern but fair, rarely noticing the servants unless something goes wrong. Mrs. Henderson is more demanding, her standards impossibly high, her criticism swift and cutting. Miss Louise is capricious, changing her mind frequently, requiring items to be brought up and then taken away again, meals to be prepared and then rejected because she's suddenly not hungry. Below stairs, the hierarchy becomes clearer with each passing day. Mr. Peterson, the butler, and Mrs. Wallace, the housekeeper, are the undisputed rulers of their respective domains. Mrs. Collins reigns supreme in the kitchen. The lady's maid and valet occupy a strange middle ground. Technically servants, but with special status due to their close contact with the family. And you, the scullery maid, remain at the bottom, taking orders from everyone, doing the tasks no one else wants to do. But there are small mercies, small moments of humanity that make the life bearable. Catherine's friendship, her quiet guidance and occasional humour, Mrs. Collins slipping you an extra piece of bread when you look particularly tired, the rare half-day off on Thursday afternoons, when you can leave the house for a few precious hours. What do you do on your half-days? You ask Catherine one morning as you scrub pots together. Sometimes I visit my cousin in the Lower East Side, she says. Sometimes I just walk in the park if the weather's decent. Sometimes I sleep. She laughs at the last one. But you understand the appeal. Sleep is the most precious commodity for a servant. There's a free reading room at the settlement house, Annie offers quietly. They have newspapers and books, and no one minds if you just sit for a while. Just sitting. Such a simple luxury, yet one you're rarely afforded during your working hours. And sometimes, Catherine adds with a conspiratorial grin, we go to the penny gaff. At your confused look, she explains, cheap entertainment, music, comedy, a bit of dancing, nothing too wild, but a sight better than staring at these four walls. The thought of entertainment, of music and laughter seems impossibly distant from your daily reality of drudgery and exhaustion. But Thursday is coming, and with it your first half-day of freedom since arriving at the Hendersons. Before that, though, there's Tuesday to get through. And Tuesday, as you've quickly learned, is chamber pot day. Every morning, the maids empty the family's chamber pots, the ceramic vessels kept in bedrooms for nighttime necessities. But on Tuesdays, those pots get a thorough cleaning, and that task falls to you. It's not so bad, Catherine tells you as she shows you to the small courtyard behind the kitchen where this particular chore takes place. Better than crawling around to empty all the fireplaces like Tom has to do. Not so bad is debatable when you're faced with a row of used chamber pots waiting to be scrubbed clean. The smell is exactly what you'd expect, and the task is exactly as unpleasant as it sounds. You tie a cloth over your nose and mouth, a small protection against the stench, and set to work. Boiling water, strong lye soap, and a stiff brush are your weapons against the filth. You scrub each pot thoroughly, rinse it with more boiling water, then set it in the sun to dry and air out. At least it's outside, Annie says, passing through the courtyard with a basket of vegetables from the small kitchen garden. Better than being stuck inside all day. She's right, you realise. Despite the unpleasantness of the task, there's a certain freedom in being outdoors, away from the watchful eyes of Mrs. Wallace and Mrs. Collins. The November air is crisp, but not unbearably cold. The weak sunlight on your face feels like a luxury after days spent mostly in the kitchen's artificial light. You scrub with renewed energy, focusing on the small pleasure of fresh air rather than the disgusting nature of the job. This, you're learning, is how servants cope, finding tiny moments of relief, of autonomy, of humanity in a life that often denies all three. By midday, the chamber pots are clean, dried, and returned to their places in the family's bedrooms. Your hands are raw again from the harsh soap and hot water, but there's a small sense of satisfaction in completing a dreaded task. One more hurdle cleared, one more skill added to your growing repertoire of servant abilities. Back in the kitchen, lunch preparations are in full swing. Today the Hendersons are entertaining Mrs. Henderson's sister and her husband for a midday meal. The menu is more elaborate than usual. Cold salmon with cucumber sauce, roast chicken, asparagus, hothouse grown at this time of year at considerable expense, and a complicated dessert involving spun sugar. Mrs. Collins is in her element, directing the kitchen with the precision of a battlefield general. Catherine chops vegetables with mechanical efficiency. Annie arranges delicate china plates in warming drawers. And you wash, as always, staying ahead of the demand for clean utensils and bowls. "Mary," Mrs. Collins calls suddenly, "I need you to run an errand. The fishmonger has sent the wrong order, and we need more salmon immediately. Take this note to Mr. Phillips at the market on 3rd Avenue. Tell him it's urgent." An errand. Outside. During working hours. It's like being offered an unexpected holiday. You dry your hands quickly, take the hastily scribbled note and practically run for the service door. Mrs. Collins calls after you, and don't dawdle straight there and straight back. The November air hits your face like a blessing as you step outside. After days in the overheated kitchen, the coolness feels incredible. You take a deep breath, savouring the simple pleasure of being outdoors, alone, with a legitimate reason to be away from the sink. The streets of New York in 1885 are a chaotic symphony of sound and motion. Horse-drawn carriages clatter over cobblestones, vendors call their wares from carts and stalls, delivery boys dart between pedestrians, ladies in fine dresses stroll with parasols and small dogs. Gentlemen hurry along in top hats and frock coats. And alongside it all, the working people, delivery men, street sweepers, newsboys, seamstresses, labourers, move with purpose, keeping the city functioning for those with money and leisure. You're conscious of your servant's uniform as you hurry along, the black dress and white apron marking you as clearly as a brand. People barely glance at you. Servants are as invisible on the streets as they are in the houses they serve. The fish market is a cacophony of shouts, the air heavy with the smell of the morning's catch. You find Mr. Phillips, deliver Mrs. Collins's note, and wait while he prepares the correct order of salmon. He wraps it in paper and then newspaper, creating a package that's still cold and damp, but at least won't soak through to your uniform on the walk back. "Tell Mrs. Collins that's the best I've got today," he says as he hands you the package. "Norwegian, not Scottish, but fresh this morning." You nod, already dreading Mrs. Collins's reaction to this substitution. The quality of the fish will reflect on her cooking, and she's already stressed about serving Mrs. Henderson's critical sister. The walk back seems shorter. The weight of the fish package and the responsibility it represents pressing on you. The brief freedom of the errand is already fading, reality reasserting itself with each step closer to the Henderson home. When you return to the kitchen, it's in even greater chaos than when you left. Something has gone wrong with the sauce for the chicken, and Mrs. Collins is frantically trying to save it. Catherine gives you a wide-eyed look of warning as you enter with the fish. "Norwegian, not Scottish," you report hesitantly, placing the package on the work table. Mrs. Collins makes a sound somewhere between a groan and a curse. "It'll have to do. We've no time for anything else. Unwrap it and bring it here." The next hour passes in a blur of frantic activity. The salmon must be cleaned, skinned, poached and chilled again for serving. The sauce must be remade from scratch. The vegetables must be prepared perfectly. The table settings must be immaculate. And through it all, the relentless awareness that any mistake, any imperfection will be noticed and criticised, not just by the family but by Mrs. Henderson's particularly judgmental sister. "She sent back a soup once because she found a piece of parsley floating in it that was the wrong shape," Catherine whispers as you work side by side, preparing the cucumber sauce. Mrs. Collins nearly gave notice that day. By the time the lunch is finally ready to be served, everyone in the kitchen is sweating despite the November chill outside. The tension is palpable as William and Thomas, the footmen, carry the first course upstairs. And then you wait. The kitchen falls into an uneasy silence, all ears straining for the sound of returning footsteps. The verdict on Mrs. Collins' Norwegian salmon. 10 minutes pass. 15. No plates return, no complaints filter down. Mrs. Collins begins to relax marginally, moving on to supervise the preparation of the next course. "No news is good news," Catherine murmurs, returning to the sink where a fresh mountain of preparation dishes awaits. "Let's hope it stays that way." And, remarkably, it does. The lunch proceeds without incident, each course served and received without criticism, when the dessert, a magnificent construction of spun sugar, pastry and cream, receives actual compliments from Mrs. Henderson's sister, relayed down by a grinning Thomas. The kitchen erupts in barely suppressed celebration. "Well done, all of you," Mrs. Collins says, her usual sternness softened by relief. "Now clear up and prepare for dinner. No rest for the wicked." No rest indeed. The cycle continues, unending, relentless. Clean up from one meal, prepare for the next. Wash, dry, polish, scrub, haul, carry, serve. But as you settle back into your place at the sink, hands once again submerged in hot, soapy water, you realise something has shifted slightly. You've been part of a crisis and its resolution. You've contributed to a success. You've begun to understand the complex ecosystem of the servant world, your place within it, and the unspoken rules that govern it. You're becoming one of them, the invisible army that makes visible luxury possible, the hands behind the comfortable lives of people like the Hendersons, the human machinery of the Gilded Age, and in that understanding there's a strange kind of belonging. Thursday arrives like water in the desert, your half-day off, the first since you began working for the Hendersons. After a week of constant labour, of being available from 5 a.m. until midnight, you'll have a few precious hours to yourself, but first there's the morning's work to be done. Don't think you're getting out of breakfast service just because it's your half day, Mrs. Collins reminds you as you lay the fire in the range. You're free from 2 until 9, not a minute before or after. 7 hours. 7 hours of freedom. It sounds like an eternity after the relentless routine of the past week. Morning proceeds as usual. Fires lit, breakfast prepared, served and cleared, dishes washed, kitchen cleaned. But there's a difference in your movements today, a suppressed energy. Even your aching hands seem less painful as they plunge into the hot, soapy water. "Where will you go?" Annie asks as you work side by side, preparing vegetables for the staff lunch. "On your half day?" You haven't decided yet. The city beyond the Henderson home is still largely unknown to you, a bewildering maze of streets and people. The thought of navigating it alone is both exhilarating and terrifying. "I thought I might visit my aunt," you say. Your mother's sister, the one who helped you find this position, lives in a tenement on the Lower East Side. It's a long walk from the Henderson home on 5th Avenue, but you're eager to see a familiar face, to speak freely without the constant awareness of hierarchy and propriety that governs life below stairs. "Take the horse car if you can spare the nickel," Catherine advises. "It'll save your feet and they're already punishing you enough in those shoes." She's right about the shoes. The black uniform shoes provided by the household are sturdy but ill-fitting, designed for durability rather than comfort. After a week of standing for 18 hours a day, your feet are a landscape of blisters and calluses. "And be careful after dark," Catherine adds. "The city's not safe for a girl alone, especially in some neighbourhoods." This concern warms you, a small reminder that despite the harsh conditions and rigid hierarchy of servant life, human connections still form. Catherine has taken you under her wing, showing you the ropes, offering advice, easing your transition into this strange new world. Lunch passes in a blur of anticipation. You serve the staff meal quickly, eat your own portion standing by the sink, no leisurely meal, even on your half day, and wash the dishes at record speed. At precisely 2 o'clock, Mrs. Wallace appears in the kitchen doorway. "Mary, you're released until 9. See that you're not late returning. And remember, you represent the Henderson household even when you're not in it. Conduct yourself accordingly." "Yes, Mrs. Wallace," you reply, already untying your apron, your fingers clumsy with eagerness. In the tiny room off the kitchen that serves as a staff changing area, you quickly remove your work uniform and put on your own clothes, the simple dress you wore when you arrived at the Henderson home a week ago. After days in the structured servant's uniform, your own clothes feel strange, almost foreign against your skin. There's a small cracked mirror on the wall and you catch a glimpse of yourself as you pin your hair into a simple style. The face that looks back at you is thinner already, the cheeks less full, the eyes tired despite your excitement. A week in service has begun to leave its mark. You tuck your meagre wages, your first partial payment given today specifically so you'd have something to spend on your half day, into your pocket, $1.25, a quarter of your monthly wage minus the half they withhold until year's end. It's not much, but it's the first money you've earned in America, and there's a certain pride in that. The service door closes behind you with a soft click, and just like that, you're free. The afternoon stretches before you, 7 hours of unstructured time that belong solely to you. The sensation is dizzying after a week of having every minute controlled by bells, schedules, and other people's needs. You stand on the sidewalk for a moment, taking in the scene. Fifth Avenue is busy with carriages and pedestrians. Ladies in fashionable walking dresses stroll with parasols. Gentlemen in business attire hurry past. Delivery boys weave between them on errands similar to your salmon run 2 days ago. You're still standing on the edge of the wealthy world, but now you're not visibly part of its machinery. Without your uniform, you're just another young woman on the street, anonymous and unremarkable. Following Catherine's advice, you walk to the nearest horse car stop. The street railway system is a marvel of modern urban life. Horse-drawn trams running on rails embedded in the street carrying passengers for a small fare. For a nickel, you can travel several miles without wearing out your already abused feet. The car is crowded when it arrives, filled with a cross-section of New York's working populace, clerks, shop girls, labourers, and yes, other servants enjoying their half-days. You find a seat near the back, squeezed between a heavy-set woman with a shopping basket and a thin man reading a newspaper. As the horse car lurches forward, a single tiny island in the North Atlantic would conquer a quarter of the entire planet, ruling over 458 million people across 6 continents. For 300 years, the British Empire saw incredible triumphs, unbelievable wealth, and staggering cruelty. Here's what life was really like at the centre of the largest empire in human history. So, yeah, if these stories work for you, subscribe. And I'm curious, what time is it where you are? Comment below. Got comments from Seattle to Stockholm last time. The time zone thing never stops being weird to me. Alright, tonight it's the British Empire. But hold up though. Get cozy first. Adjust those pillows. Pull up that blanket. Trust me, once we get going, you won't want to move. Your eyes flutter open in the darkness. It's still hours before dawn, and the bitter cold of a 9th century English morning has already worked its way under your thin woolen blanket. The straw mattress beneath you crackles as you shift, trying to find warmth that simply isn't there. Outside, you can hear the wind howling. Not just any wind, but the kind that carries whispers of something worse. Vikings. The word alone makes your stomach clench. They've been raiding coastal villages for decades now, but the attacks are getting worse, more coordinated, more deadly. Last month they burned the monastery just 10 miles north, no survivors. You're not in some fancy castle with stone walls. You're in a simple wooden hut with gaps between the planks wide enough to let in both the freezing air and the howling sounds of approaching danger. The thatched roof above leaks when it rains, which in England is basically always. "They're coming!" someone shouts outside. The Danes are coming! And just like that, your village erupts into chaos. Welcome to the very beginning of what would become the largest empire in human history. But right now, England isn't conquering anyone, they're just trying to survive. It's 878 AD, and King Alfred, later called Alfred the Great, though nobody's calling him that yet, is in serious trouble. The Vikings under Guthrum have launched a massive invasion, and Alfred has been forced to retreat to the marshlands of Somerset. Picture this: the King of Wessex, hiding in a swamp, while Danish warriors take over his kingdom. The king's been defeated. A ragged messenger tells your village, we're to flee or submit. But here's where it gets interesting. Rather than surrendering, Alfred does something unexpected. In these marshlands, this desolate place of mud and reeds and fog, so thick you can barely see your hand in front of your face, he begins to plan. The marshes of Somerset aren't just wet and miserable, they're practically a different world. When you wade through water up to your knees, every step threatens to suck your boots off. The constant dampness works its way into your clothes, your skin, your bones. At night, the temperature drops so low that your breath forms clouds in front of your face. Your fingers turn blue. Your teeth chatter so hard you worry they'll crack. But the marsh also provides protection. The Vikings don't know these waterways. They don't know which paths lead to solid ground and which lead to sinkholes that will swallow a man whole. The mud saved us, one of Alfred's soldiers would later say. Can you imagine? Saved by mud. In these marshes, Alfred regroups, gathering loyal followers. These aren't professional soldiers, they're farmers, blacksmiths, tanners, regular people with families to protect. They train with whatever weapons they can find or make. Some have proper swords, most have sharpened farm tools. You're among them, learning to fight with a pitchfork because it's all you have. Your hands blister and bleed as you practice hour after hour, day after day. The weight of it makes your arms ache, but you keep going. What choice do you have? Then comes the moment that will change everything. Alfred, this king who's been hiding in marshes, leads his ragtag army to Eddington. You march alongside men who are just as terrified as you are, just as determined. The battle is chaos, screaming blood, the clash of metal, the squelch of mud beneath your feet. Men die around you, some from wounds so horrible you'll see them in your nightmares for years to come. The smell is overwhelming, blood, sweat, fear, death. But somehow, against all odds, Alfred wins. The Viking leader Guthrum is baptized as a Christian, and a treaty establishes the Danelaw, a region where Viking rule is officially recognized, but the rest of England is safe. This is how the story of the British Empire begins, not with conquest, but with survival, not with domination, but with a desperate fight to simply exist. Fast forward about 100 years, Alfred's grandson, Athelstan, becomes the first king to unite all of England under one rule. It's the first time this collection of kingdoms, tribes and territories has been brought together as a single nation. One land, one king, the people say. England. But let me tell you, being united doesn't mean much when you're a peasant tending your tiny plot of land. You still wake before dawn, still work until your back feels like it might snap, still go to bed hungry more often than not. The fields don't care who wears the crown. And England is still small, tiny, really, compared to what it will become. The concept of an empire is centuries away. In fact, the first real step toward empire doesn't happen until 1171, when English King Henry II decides to expand to Ireland. And when I say decides to expand, what I really mean is invades his neighbour. Wait, it gets better. Henry shows up in Ireland with a bunch of knights and soldiers, sails into Waterford and basically says, "This is mine now." The Irish kings and chieftains are like, excuse me? And Henry's response is basically, "Did I stutter? Submit or else." Now, I want you to picture yourself as an Irish farmer at this moment. You're just living your life, tending your crops, trying to survive on land your family has worked for generations. Then suddenly some foreign king shows up with armed men and declares that your home belongs to him now. It's like if your neighbour kicked down your door, sat on your couch and announced that your house was theirs. Except with more swords and fewer police to call. Surprisingly, various Irish bishops and clergymen meet at the Senate of Cashel and actually recognise Henry as their ruler, and just like that, Ireland becomes England's first colony, the first domino to fall in what will become a global empire. Now let's jump ahead to 1277. King Edward why wants Wales. He doesn't ask nicely, he just takes an army and marches in. The Welsh fight back, of course. They know their mountainous terrain in ways the English don't. They use guerrilla tactics, ambushing English soldiers in narrow valleys where their larger numbers don't help them. But Edward is relentless. When the Welsh resistance is crushed, he builds massive castles across Wales, not as homes or palaces, but as symbols of power. These aren't the fairy tale castles you're thinking of. These are brutal, imposing fortresses designed to intimidate. Those walls aren't to keep invaders out, a Welsh farmer tells his son. They're to keep us in. But England's ambitions are still limited to its immediate neighbours. The wider world remains largely unknown. That's about to change. The late 1400s bring a revolution in how Europeans see the world. In 1492, Christopher Columbus sails west and stumbles upon the Americas. Suddenly, there are new lands to explore, new resources to exploit, new peoples to encounter, and unfortunately to conquer. The English government sees opportunity when Italian explorer Giovanni Caboto, who changes his name to the more English-friendly John Cabot, approaches King Henry VII with a proposal to explore the new continent. The king is intrigued. He gives Cabot a patent authorising him to claim any lands he discovers for England. In May 1497, Cabot sets sail from Bristol on a small ship called the Matthew. The voyage is brutal. Imagine being on a wooden vessel smaller than a modern bus, tossed by Atlantic waves higher than houses. The constant motion makes your stomach heave. The salt spray soaks your clothes, which never fully dry in the damp air. You sleep on hard planks, if you sleep at all. Many sailors simply fall overboard during storms, never to be seen again. After weeks of this torture, Cabot and his crew spot land what will later be called Newfoundland. They encounter indigenous peoples who've lived there for thousands of years, plant the English flag, and claim the territory for England, because that's what Europeans did back then. They showed up somewhere people already lived and said, "Mine now." But claiming land and actually controlling it are two very different things. England's first serious attempt at establishing a colony doesn't come until much later, and it doesn't go well. Let's talk about Roanoke. In 1584, Queen Elizabeth I grants Sir Walter Raleigh a charter to explore and colonise lands in the New World. Raleigh dispatches an expedition to Roanoke Island off the coast of what's now North Carolina. About 100 people arrive in 1585. They build a fort and try to interact with the local Native American tribes. At first, relations are positive. They trade goods and exchange knowledge, but tensions rise over time. The region's harsh conditions, including disease and food shortages, make life miserable for the colonists. Many fall ill with fevers that leave them delirious, their bodies burning hot even as they shiver uncontrollably. Others develop dysentery, a horrific condition where your body essentially turns itself inside out through constant bloody diarrhea. Food becomes scarce. The colonists, mostly city folk from England, don't know how to farm in this new environment. They don't recognise which plants are edible and which are poisonous. They don't know how to hunt the unfamiliar animals. They're starving in a land of plenty simply because they lack the knowledge to survive. When Sir Francis Drake stops by on his way back to England, he offers to take the colonists home. Most accept, abandoning the colony. Raleigh tries again in 1587 with 118 settlers, but when ships return 3 years later, everyone has vanished. The only clue is the word Croatoan, carved into a post. The lost colony of Roanoke becomes one of history's enduring mysteries. Did they integrate with native tribes? Were they killed? Did they try to sail home and perish at sea? We still don't know. What we do know is that establishing colonies is brutally difficult. It's not just about planting a flag and claiming land, it's about surviving in unfamiliar environments, facing diseases your body has no resistance to, finding food when you don't recognise the plants or animals, and navigating complex relationships with indigenous peoples who, understandably, might not be thrilled about strangers showing up and claiming their ancestral lands. Meanwhile, back in Europe, England faces a different kind of threat. In 1588, Spanish King Philip II sends the Spanish Armada, a fleet of 130 ships carrying over 30,000 soldiers, sailors and marines to invade England. Queen Elizabeth calls upon her naval commanders, including Sir Francis Drake, to defend the realm. Despite being outnumbered and having fewer and smaller ships, the English have advantages in manoeuvrability and firepower. Picture yourself on one of those English ships. The wooden deck shifts beneath your feet as waves rock the vessel. The air smells of salt water, gunpowder, and fear. Around you, men prepare for battle, checking cannons, sharpening swords, praying to whatever gods they believe in. When the Spanish Armada appears on the horizon, it's a terrifying sight. Ship after ship after ship, seemingly endless. Your mouth goes dry, your hands shake, the man next to you vomits over the side. But the English have a plan. Using smaller, more agile ships, they attack the Armada from the rear, firing salvos and quickly retreating. The Spanish, in their larger, slower vessels, can't respond effectively. Then comes a moment of brilliant strategy. The English send fire ships, vessels loaded with flammable materials and set ablaze toward the Armada. The sight of these floating infernos causes the Spanish to break formation. The Battle of Gravelines follows, a fierce and prolonged fight where English ships engage the Spanish at close quarters. The sounds are deafening: cannon fire, splintering wood, men screaming in pain and fear. When it's over, the Spanish retreat, attempting to navigate back to Spain. Harsh storms and strong currents take their toll, and what returns to Spain is a shadow of the mighty Armada that set out. England has defended itself against one of the most powerful nations in the world, and in doing so, it's demonstrated that despite its small size, it's a force to be reckoned with. But while England celebrates this victory at sea, closer to home, Ireland continues to resist English rule. Hugh O'Neill, the Earl of Tyrone, leads a rebellion against the increasingly oppressive English policies. O'Neill is torn between loyalty to the English crown and love for Ireland and its people, but he can't bear to see Ireland suffer under foreign rule. He raises his banner, calling upon other Gaelic lords to join him in resistance. The English respond swiftly, sending armies to crush the rebellion. Battle after battle leaves the countryside scarred. The conflict earns the name 9 Years' War as it drags on from 1593 to 1603. For the average Irish person, this war is hell on earth. Your fields are burned by one side or the other, leaving you with nothing to harvest. Your livestock, the animals you depend on for milk, meat and labour, are slaughtered or stolen. Your home may be destroyed, forcing you to seek shelter in forests or caves. You're caught between two forces, neither of which seems particularly concerned about your survival. In 1601, a small Spanish force arrives to aid the Irish rebels, but the Battle of Kinsale ends in defeat for the Irish and Spanish forces. The rebellion collapses, and in 1603 the Irish surrender. The Treaty of Mellifont grants pardons to the rebels, allowing them to retain some lands and religious freedoms, but it also leads to the systematic destruction of the Gaelic language and the discouragement of Catholicism in favour of Anglicanism. They want to transform us, an Irish farmer tells his children. They don't just want our land, they want us to become them. As the 16th century draws to a close, England has established itself as a significant European power. It's fought off the Spanish Armada, brought Ireland more firmly under control, and begun to explore possibilities in the New World. But the real expansion of what will become the British Empire is just beginning. The 17th century will bring the first successful English colonies in North America, the development of the slave trade, and the establishment of trading posts in India. It's at this point that England begins to truly look outward, beyond its immediate neighbours, toward a global presence. The foundation is being laid for what will become the largest empire in human history. In 1606, the Virginia Company of London is founded to find wealth and a passage to the Pacific. With King James's blessing, 104 settlers leave the River Thames in London on December 20th, 1606, bound for the New World. Try to imagine what it was like for these people. They're leaving behind everything they've ever known, their homes, many of their family members, the familiar sights and sounds and smells of England. They're boarding wooden ships to cross an ocean known for violent storms and deadly hazards. And they're heading for a land most of them have only heard about in stories. Stories that range from paradise-like descriptions to tales of cannibals and monsters. The winter voyage is grueling. Atlantic storms toss the ships like toys. Waves crash over the decks, soaking everything and everyone. Below deck, the air is foul with the smell of vomit, unwashed bodies, and fear. Many passengers are seasick for weeks on end. Some die during the crossing, their bodies committed to the deep with brief prayers. On May 13th, 1607, the survivors arrive on a marshy peninsula in what is now Virginia. They name their settlement Jamestown after their king. At first, the colonists marvel at the beauty of this new land, the lush forests, clear waters, and abundant wildlife, but paradise quickly turns to hell. The Virginia climate, with its relentless heat and humidity, is unbearable for many. Disease spreads rapidly among the settlers. Malaria and dysentery claim many lives. You've never experienced heat like this. It's as if the air itself is trying to drown you. Your clothes stick to your skin, soaked with sweat from dawn till dusk. Even breathing feels like work. Then there's the hunger. The colonists arrive when crops aren't ready for harvest, and with dwindling supplies they face starvation. The land, while beautiful, is unfamiliar. They don't know which plants are safe to eat, which are poisonous, which have medicinal properties. "We came looking for gold," one colonist says bitterly. "We found death instead." Relations with the local Powhatan Confederacy are complex and often tense. Misunderstandings and mistrust lead to clashes. The settlers struggle to communicate and negotiate effectively. Leadership within the colony faces challenges too. Power dynamics shift, and direction is often unclear. When the bold leader John Smith departs, the situation worsens. The winter of 1609 becomes known as the starving time. Food supplies run out completely. Colonists eat whatever they can find: horses, pets, leather, and according to some accounts, even the bodies of those who had died. Of the original settlers, only 60 survived this period. But somehow, against all odds, Jamestown perseveres. John Rolfe introduces tobacco cultivation, which thrives in the Virginia soil and climate. This brings financial prosperity to the struggling colony, attracting more settlers. While Jamestown is struggling to establish itself, English merchants are looking eastward. In 1607, William Hawkins is sent to establish trade in India. After a perilous voyage, he arrives in the port of Surat in 1608, one of the most important trading centres on the Indian west coast. The Mughal Emperor Jahangir welcomes the English visitors, intrigued by the foreign goods and the possibility of trade. Negotiations result in an agreement allowing the English East India Company to establish a trading post in Surat. By 1612, the Surat trading post is in full operation, trading English weapons and metalware for Indian textiles, spices and indigo. This marks the beginning of England's presence in India, a presence that will grow dramatically over the next 2 centuries. Back in England, religious tensions are mounting. King James III makes it clear that everyone must be Anglican. Those who don't comply are told to leave. This ultimatum gives rise to the idea of America as a place where people can practice religion freely. In 1620, a group of English religious dissenters known as the Pilgrims set sail for the New World aboard the Mayflower. The journey is harrowing. The ship was built to transport wine between England and France, not to cross the Atlantic. Storms toss the boat violently. Passengers crowd below deck in semi-darkness, soaked by water that leaks in from above. Disease spreads in these cramped, unsanitary conditions. In mid-ocean, the ship nearly becomes disabled when a storm badly damages its main beam. By a stroke of luck, one of the colonists has a metal jackscrew purchased in Holland to help construct homes in the new settlement. They use it to secure the beam, keeping the vessel seaworthy. Despite the challenges, the Mayflower reaches Cape Cod on November 21st, 1620. The Pilgrims establish Plymouth Colony, but their struggles are far from over. By December, most passengers have become ill, coughing violently and suffering from scurvy. By March, only 47 of the original colonists have survived, yet somehow the tiny settlement endures. As England establishes footholds in North America, it also looks to the Caribbean. In 1624, explorer Thomas Warner establishes the colony of St. Christopher, now St. Kitts, in the Caribbean. The following year, French captain Pierre Belin d'Esnambouc joins the English, forming a joint colony. Warner accepts the French newcomers out of fear of the native Kalinago tribe. When the Kalinago plan to attack the Europeans, an enslaved woman named Barbe reveals the plan. What follows is a massacre. The English and French kill between 100 and 120 Kalinago in their beds, sparing only the most beautiful women to serve as slaves. The next day, they round up approximately 4,000 Kalinago people and kill them as they attempt to surrender. The river runs red with blood, literally. It becomes known as the Bloody River, flowing past the aptly named Bloody Point. With the Kalinago people eliminated, the European colonists face a new problem. Who will do the labour-intensive tobacco farming? Their solution is to import enslaved people from Africa, and so begins one of the darkest chapters in the empire's history. The slave trade will become a cornerstone of British colonial economics, bringing immense wealth to some, while inflicting unimaginable suffering on millions. As the 1620s progress, England continues to expand its Caribbean presence, settling Barbados in 1625, Nevis in 1627, and Montserrat and Antigua in 1632. These islands become crucial to the growing empire, producing valuable crops like sugar and tobacco. But the empire's foundations are still being laid. The dramatic expansion that will make Britain the world's dominant power is yet to come. The seeds have been planted, however, in North America, in the Caribbean, in India. Over the next several centuries, these seeds will grow into the largest empire the world has ever seen. As you lie in your bed tonight, comfortable and safe, think about those early colonists facing unknown dangers, battling harsh elements, making desperate choices. Think about the indigenous peoples whose lives were forever altered by European arrival. Think about the enslaved Africans torn from their homes to labour in foreign lands. The story of the British Empire is one of extraordinary human achievement and courage, but also of exploitation, cruelty, and cultural destruction. It's a complex legacy that continues to shape our world today, and this is just the beginning. The empire will grow far beyond these early footholds, eventually encompassing nearly a quarter of the Earth's land surface and ruling over 458 million people. But that's a story for another time. For now, as your eyes grow heavy and sleep begins to claim you, remember that history isn't just about kings and queens, battles and treaties. It's about ordinary people living through extraordinary times, making choices, some heroic, some horrific, that echo through the centuries. The British Empire began not with grand designs of global domination, but with survival, opportunity, and a gradual expansion that would, over generations, reshape the world in ways no one could have imagined. The year is 1534, and King Henry VIII is about to do something absolutely bonkers that will change England and eventually the world forever. Imagine waking up one morning to discover that your country has an entirely new religion because the king couldn't get his wife pregnant with a boy. Yeah, that actually happened. But let's back up a bit. Henry VIII had been married to Catherine of Aragon for years. They had a daughter, Mary, but no male heir, and Henry was obsessed with having a son to inherit his throne. The king's moods are darker than a storm cloud, whispers a servant in the royal kitchens. He paces the halls at night, muttering about sons and succession. Henry decides his marriage is cursed because Catherine was previously married to his older brother Arthur, who died. According to the Old Testament, marrying your brother's widow is forbidden. Henry becomes convinced this is why he doesn't have a male heir, so he asks the Pope for an annulment. The Pope, influenced by Catherine's powerful nephew, Emperor Charles V of Spain, says no. Now, if you or I got told no by the highest religious authority on earth, we'd probably just deal with it. But kings aren't like normal people. When Henry gets told no, he essentially says, fine, I'll make my own church where I'm in charge. And that's exactly what he does. In 1534, Parliament passes the Act of Supremacy, officially creating the Church of England with King Henry VIII as its head. Think about what this meant for ordinary people. Imagine you're a peasant farmer who's been Catholic your entire life, as has every generation of your family going back centuries. Your entire understanding of the world, the afterlife, salvation, everything is rooted in Catholic teachings. Then suddenly, by royal decree, you're told that's all wrong, and now you need to follow this new church instead. My grandmother cried for days, a man later recalled. She thought we'd all go to hell for abandoning the true faith. Some embraced the change, others resisted. Those who refused to acknowledge the king as the head of the church faced severe consequences, including execution. After Henry's death, his daughter Mary, a devout Catholic, takes the throne and tries to restore Catholicism, earning the nickname Bloody Mary for her brutal persecution of Protestants. But her reign is short-lived. When her half-sister Elizabeth I becomes queen, she re-establishes Protestantism as England's official religion, passing her own Act of Supremacy in 1559. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the race for colonization has begun. The Spanish have established colonies across South America, the Portuguese control Brazil, the French have settlements in Quebec and Florida. Elizabeth I sees all this expansion and thinks, I want some of that. So she commissions an army of seafarers to explore the world. These men, known as the Sea Dogs, are given legal permission to pillage and loot Spanish ships. One of Elizabeth's first appointees is John Hawkins, a pardoned killer who joins the Royal Navy to save his life. In 1561, Hawkins travels to the Canary Islands, a Spanish colony off the coast of Africa. There he discovers a horrific but lucrative business opportunity, the slave trade. In 1562, Hawkins sails to Sierra Leone, where he captures 300 Africans and forces them onto his ship. The conditions are beyond inhumane. People are chained together, lying in their own waste, with barely enough food or water to survive. Many die during the crossing from disease, starvation, or suicide. Hawkins sells these enslaved people in the Caribbean, trading them for pearls, hides and sugar. The business is so profitable that when he returns to England, he's knighted. Let that sink in. The first English slave trader was given a knighthood for his achievements. But Queen Elizabeth isn't just interested in attacking Spanish ships and trading enslaved people. She also wants to establish permanent English settlements in the New World. After the failed Roanoke colony we talked about earlier, England finally establishes a successful permanent colony at Jamestown in 1607, but living conditions there are brutal. The water tastes like someone pissed in it, a colonist writes home, because someone probably did. The Jamestown settlement is located on a swampy peninsula with brackish water that makes everyone sick. Mosquitoes bring malaria. Poor sanitation leads to dysentery. Food is scarce. Of the original 104 settlers, only 38 survived the first year. John Smith, one of the colony's leaders, enforces strict rules to keep the settlement alive. He who does not work does not eat. This doesn't make him popular, but it keeps people alive. The colony's fortunes change when John Rolfe introduces a strain of tobacco that thrives in Virginia soil. Suddenly Jamestown has a cash crop. The demand for labour grows, and in 1619 the first ship carrying enslaved Africans arrives in Virginia. Around the same time, another group of English settlers is preparing to leave for America, not for gold or tobacco, but for religious freedom. The Puritans believe the Church of England hasn't gone far enough in removing Catholic influences. They face persecution under King James I and his son Charles the Fern, who demand strict adherence to Anglican practices. In 1620, a group of these dissenters, known as the Pilgrims, sets sail on the Mayflower. After a miserable 66-day journey across the Atlantic, they land at what becomes Plymouth, Massachusetts. The first winter is devastating. Half the colonists die from cold, starvation, and disease. Imagine huddling in a crude shelter as the temperature drops below freezing. The wind finds every gap in the rough-hewn walls. Your fingers and toes go numb. Your breath forms clouds in the frigid air. Your stomach gnaws with hunger. We buried the dead in unmarked graves at night, one survivor later wrote, so the Indians wouldn't know how many we had lost. But by spring, the situation improves. The local Wampanoag people, led by Massasoit, teach the survivors how to plant corn, catch fish, and hunt game. The colony slowly grows. 10 years later, a much larger group of Puritans arrives, establishing the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Unlike the Pilgrims, these Puritans don't seek to separate from the Church of England. They want to purify it, and they believe their new colony will be an example to the world. "We shall be as a city upon a hill," declares John Winthrop, their leader. "The eyes of all people are upon us." But this city upon a hill isn't exactly a beacon of tolerance. The Puritans establish a society based on their strict religious beliefs. Anyone who deviates faces punishment or exile. The Puritans came to America for religious freedom, a later historian quips. The freedom to practice their religion and forbid everyone else from practicing theirs. The religious zeal is so intense that some, like Roger Williams and Thomas Hooker, break away to establish more tolerant colonies in Rhode Island and Connecticut. While the Puritans are building their godly society in New England, the English are also expanding into the Caribbean. In 1624, they establish a colony on St. Kitts, followed by settlements on Barbados, Nevis, Montserrat, and Antigua. These islands become enormously profitable thanks to one crop, sugar. But sugar cultivation is brutally labour-intensive. The work involves clearing land, planting, weeding, and harvesting in the scorching tropical heat. European colonists, unaccustomed to the climate and susceptible to tropical diseases, quickly turn to enslaved African labour. Life for an enslaved person on a Caribbean sugar plantation is hell on earth. You wake before dawn and work until sunset in temperatures that regularly exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Your back bleeds from the overseer's whip. Your hands are raw and blistered from cutting sugarcane with a machete. You're given barely enough food to survive. At night, you collapse in a crude hut, only to repeat the process the next day, and the next, and the next. "You don't get used to it," an enslaved man later testifies. "You just learn to survive it." The death rate on sugar plantations is so high that plantation owners find it more economical to work people to death and replace them than to maintain their health. It's one of the most brutal labour systems in human history. By the 1640s, Barbados has been transformed from a relatively diverse society of small farmers to a slave colony dominated by large plantations. The island becomes enormously wealthy for its white inhabitants. In 1645, there are 5,680 enslaved Africans on Barbados. By 1668, there are over 40,000. Back in England, religious tensions continue to simmer. King Charles I's attempts to impose Anglican worship on Scotland trigger a rebellion. His increasing autocratic rule and dismissal of Parliament lead to growing opposition. In 1642, these tensions explode into civil war. On one side are the royalists supporting the king. On the other are the parliamentarians fighting for greater parliamentary power. For the average person, the English Civil War is a nightmare. Neighbours fight neighbours. Families are torn apart by divided loyalties. Villages are looted by both sides. Fields lie fallow as men are called to fight rather than farm, leading to food shortages. "I saw a man kill his own brother," one witness recounts. "They wore different colours, served different masters, but they shared the same blood." After years of fighting, the parliamentarians, led by Oliver Cromwell, emerge victorious. Charles I is captured, tried for treason, and executed in 1649, an act that shocks Europe. A king ordained by God has been tried and executed by his own people. Cromwell establishes himself as Lord Protector, effectively a military dictator. He bans traditional Christmas celebrations for being too Catholic. He enforces strict moral codes, and he expands England's empire through military conquest. In Ireland, Cromwell's forces commit atrocities that are remembered to this day. At Drogheda in 1649, they kill nearly 3,500 people after capturing the town, including soldiers, civilians, and priests. At Wexford, they kill 2,000 Irish troops and 1,500 civilians, burning the town